Great, thanks, Eric. Yes, today we are very fortunate to have with us three parents, Alicia, Nathan, and Andrea, and they're each going to just kind of speak about their experiences as parents, kind of what they've gone through and how they've gotten to recovery, where they were, where they are now, what was helpful for them. So they're each going to just take some time and share their story. At the end, we should have plenty of time for questions. So as we're going along, you have a question and you want to go ahead and put it in the chat box, that's fine. We'll look at the chat after everyone's done speaking and ask those questions. Once each three of them are done speaking, you can feel free to get off mute at that point and ask your questions also. But just please join me in welcoming them. The first one to speak will be Andrea. So go ahead, Andrea.
Okay. Hey guys. I am going to start. So, I was born in Romania, and I was adopted when I was 6 weeks old. And let's see, I had a very happy childhood. Like, I did not have a bad childhood at all. I was lucky to have grown up with very supportive parents. They both made me feel very special all the time. So, like I said, I was a really good kid. Excuse me. I enjoyed horseback riding. I loved horses. I did a little bit of baseball. And childhood was very fun and happy for me. I was a good kid. My problems didn't really start until middle school. Um, it was seventh grade, and I didn't really have a lot of friends. I didn't really do well with the transition of going to school with a lot of people either. And I was also bullied really bad. And so, because I was bullied and I didn't have a lot of friends, I didn't want to go to school, and I just didn't go to school. Like, my dad would leave for work at 5 in the morning, and my mom was stuck with me in the morning, and I just wouldn't get up. There was nothing she could do to get me up, and I wasn't very open with her about what was going on. She knew I was getting bullied, but I don't think I told her it was as bad as it was, because it was embarrassing to tell anybody. But I got in trouble for truancy, and my grades suffered as well because I wasn't going to school, obviously. So I got in trouble with truancy. I had a truancy officer, and I ended up actually going to juvie for like 30 days. I think I was 14 years old at that time. So I was in juvie for 30 days, and then I was released back to my parents' house. They put me in a different school. And at that time, I think I was a ninth grader when I went to a different school. And it's kind of ironic because the school that I was getting bullied at, I became friends with a lot of the graduates and seniors from that school, who took an interest in me, and they became my friends. But because they were so much older and I was only 15, I started sneaking out in the middle of the night with them, and they all drank and smoked weed, so I did because they did. And I think I felt like I was finally like a part of something, like I had friends, I had people I could call. I never really had that before. And like I said, my parents obviously did not know I was sneaking out of the house for like 3 months every night. And one night, I think it was around like 3 or 4 a.m., we got pulled over, and the sheriff called my parents in the middle of the night, and like my dad was so mad at me. He told them to just go ahead and take me to intake instead of letting me come home. And I was pretty upset about that because everybody else in the car, even though they had weed and alcohol on them, they let them go home. So that's kind of when my life took another shift. Like I said, at that time, I was still 15 years old. And I still had a truancy officer. And that same truancy officer was my officer for now this, because I got in trouble for sneaking out. they took me to her office the next day because my parents wouldn't take me home. So I got transported to the courthouse, and then my parents came there, and basically they kicked me out of the room, and my parents actually put me in foster care. My court service officer was trying to talk them out of it big time, but they didn't want me to come back home. So I was 15, I get put in foster care. That sucked because I heard a lot of people's stories that I had no idea about. I didn't grow up the way most people do in foster care. So it was kind of an eye opener for me. And basically the only thing that being in foster care did for me was realize how good my house was and my parents were. That's about it. But I was still angry at them for doing that. And they were pretty angry about it too, because the state made them pay for me the whole time that I was in foster care because they put me there. So, um, let's see. And then after that, let's see, I was 17 years old at the time I got placed in Wamego. I ran away from that home for the first time. And I ran all the way back to Topeka, which was about, I don't know, a 45-minute drive. I ran all the way back here. I went to my parents' house, and they turned me in, of course, because I was still in state custody. And since I ran away, the judge gave me 60 days in juvie. So I went and did that. And then I found out that I was pregnant when I was in juvie. And I wasn't so much scared about being pregnant as I was what my parents were going to say, but they were like super excited and super happy. So basically, I did my 60 days in juvie. The judge let me go home. Um, I was I was really happy. I stopped talking to everybody. I just focused on myself. I stopped smoking weed and drinking. That wasn't really an issue for me. But yeah, and then in 2008, I had my daughter. Mom, dad, and me were doing really good. And then my daughter was 3 months old. And I got invited to a party from a girl that I was actually really good friends with in foster care who was from here in Topeka. And my dad gave me like $60 to go out. And that night, my daughter was 3 months old. I was still 17 years old. And the first night I go out after having my daughter, I, tried meth for the first time. It wasn't like I wanted to. I had $60 and they had already been using for I don't know how long, but they talked me into giving them $60. So I did for nothing. And then they were in the room and I tried it. And that's really kind of when my life took a dark turn. I was really never addicted to anything before in my entire life until I tried that. After I didn't really even realize I was high when I was high when I first tried it, but I know I needed it the next day, you know. And I was only 17 years old. I had no idea that the meth game was full of crime when I started. I was so young. Um, and it took about less than 3 months for my whole life to fall apart after I tried it for the first time. Um, and so I adopted her out to the dad's mom and dad in Wamego. They were a really young couple and they were happy to do it. So that situation couldn't have gone better than it did. I didn't want to give her up and sign over my rights, but I knew I was such a mess that I wasn't able to even take care of myself. And I didn't want her to be put in foster care. So that was, a big thing for me, that she wasn't going to have to go through any of that. So after I relinquished my rights to my daughter when I was 17, I kept using every single day up until 2012. I would use all the time. I didn't want to go a day without being high because I didn't want to cry about my daughter. I was an addict. I never got in trouble with law enforcement. I never got in any kind of court trouble with any of it. I was very fortunate in that way. But in 2012, I got pregnant with my son Asher, and found out after I was like 3 months pregnant that I was pregnant. Quit using. Started going to outpatient at New Dawn, and my life was good. My dad rented me out a house. I loved being a mom again. It was like my second chance. And gosh, me and Asher did everything together. Like he was my whole life. Um, and I was clean for like, I think almost 3 years. I got a job at Vallejo Recovery Center in 2015. And after going to New Dawn for outpatient, and let's see, I worked there for about 3 months, and I relapsed while working there, but I didn't tell anybody that. And then I ended up leaving and going to Texas with an ex-client that was there. And I took my son with me. And that's when my life kind of went down the tubes for a while. My mom and my brother came and got Asher. They met with this couple that took Asher back. They met in Oklahoma, my brother and mom, and this really nice woman and her son took my son back to Oklahoma, and they met, and it was just not a good situation. Um, yeah, I was down in Texas for about 3 months, and I don't think I was using meth. I don't know what it was, but it made me crazy. It didn't make me me. Um, and when I came back, when my mom finally came down there and got me, I was crazy for like almost 2 to 3 years. I was crazy. Um, I was very paranoid, and I was very confused about a lot of things that were going on. And I just wasn't in my right mind. And a lot of people, even my court service officer, um, Christy, she didn't think I was ever going to be able to come back from it. It was it wasn't good, and I almost lost my son Asher, but I got him back. I still have him. My parents were trying to adopt him out to another family when I got back from Texas, and the judge didn't even make a ruling in that because so many people wanted him. But anyways, I got custody back of him. And then in 2017, I got pregnant with Cameron, and I was still using with him when I was pregnant, which I'm not proud of because I always said I was never going to do that. But like I said, I wasn't right in my right mind when I came back from Texas. I had like Stockholm syndrome and all kinds of stuff that Texas did to me. So I had Cameron, my little boy, in 2017. I still used up until he was, I don't know, less than a year. Finally, I got clean. I quit using drugs. Things with my parents got better. I just stopped. Moved back home with my parents. And I was clean all the way up until 2018 of October, and I relapsed again. And that was really, really, really hard for me because when I relapsed, I thought I was going to lose everybody, and I thought I was going to lose all my kids, and it was just really, really scary. It was a detrimental relapse. I've never felt that way in my entire life. Like I just lost everything, that any opportunity I had was gone. And God gave me a second chance, and I took it and ran with it. Jennifer, after I relapsed, Jennifer came over to my house and talked to me about going back to New Dawn. So I did, and it worked. And in 2019, I was clean, still clean, and I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, Nora, and still went to New Dawn while I was pregnant with her, outpatient treatment, and everything was great. I was clean. I had all three of my kids. I finally had my daughter. And then in 2021, my dad, I think in 2020, my dad was diagnosed with leukemia, but he didn't tell any of us. And then in 2021, my dad got COVID, and so did my mom. And it's very hard for me to talk about because the whole time I was telling you guys that I was relapsing and all this stuff, my dad bought me a house. Like, my dad did everything for me. He was my best friend. He did everything for my kids. He was like the best dad in the world. And in 2021 of September, he ended up dying in the hospital, and I wasn't able to see him. They didn't let me have any kind of Zoom videos with him or anything like that. And my mom was almost died at the same time, but she made it. She's still here. And
You actually, oh, there you go.
after my dad died, that was one thing I always told myself that I was never going to be able to do was be sober when he died, because he did everything for me. He paid all my bills. He bought me a house. He paid for my mortgage. He did everything for my kids. And I couldn't have been further from using drugs than ever when he was passing away and when he died. And I have been sober ever since October of 2018, the last time I relapsed. And, you know, I guess I'll end this by saying, you know, I was able to stay clean this time this long because I had a lot of time alone while I was pregnant with my daughter in 2019. And after I relapsed, I spent a lot of time alone. I went to New Dawn outpatient, and I really contemplated on what I wanted and didn't want out of life, and what could happen, and what could happen if I didn't use. And, you know, I just don't want to be scared anymore of losing my kids. You know, I don't want that life anymore. I don't want any of those kind of people around me or near my kids, you know. And I just want my dad to know that, you know, I'm strong because of him, because he had a lot to do with me getting to the point where I am right now talking to all of you. So yeah, that's my story. I think I'm going to end it there. So yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrea.
You're welcome.
I know your story so well, but it's always good to hear. I've been through so much of it with you, but
I winged it this time. Did I do okay?
yes, Andrea, you did just great.
I didn't want to keep on talking and talking. So.
All right. Next, we're going to have Alicia speak. Alicia is nervous, but I know that she's going to do great. So, all right. So go ahead, Alicia.
Hi, I'm Alicia. Well, I was raised by a single father of three. Barely knew English. He was an alcoholic. I barely remember my mom being there. Like, I have like memories here and there of her being there, but every time she was there, they were always fighting. I'm the oldest out of the three, so I kind of took on the role as, I guess you could say, as a caretaker. Like, I mean, it's not like my dad forced me to doing it, but I ended up being the one doing laundry, making sure my dad's, you know, lunch was made, my sister and brother's clothes were ready. So I didn't realize that I was being the mom. I mean, yeah, I had a lot of people make comments about me being the little mom or whatnot, but I just felt like I wanted to help my dad. He kind of, he opened, growing up, he was one who opened up to me a lot. So like I knew what he was going through. So like I guess in a way I felt the need to, I ended up being more like I grew up faster than what I should have, I guess. Um, I wanted to have I had straight A's. I was in sports. After school I was always with my brother and my sister. They got to play outside. I stayed in. Um, my mom didn't come around as much. Um, okay, so getting older, I remember when I was younger, he was studying for his US citizenship the same time I was learning about the presidents and stuff like that. I just felt like I went through a lot of it with my dad. Um, I ended up going to church like around middle school. Um, so I was trying to get him to go into church and stop drinking. Well, he did while we were in middle school. Um, he quit drinking. We were into church. Um, it was pretty cool, him being sober and us being with us and spending more time with us and all that. Um, then he he started dating somebody, uh, ended up marrying her. She was one way, like in front of my dad, and another way toward us kids. He didn't believe us at first. Well, so then I guess you could say I started rebelling. Uh, that's when I started actually sneaking out. I started skipping school. By then I was already in high school. Um, it kind of went downhill from that. From there, I tried moving in with my mom, who really wasn't around, but I ended up moving in with my aunt instead. I moved to the res. Okay. Okay, so I ended up getting a boyfriend in high school. I ended up skipping more. My grades went down. I quit playing sports. Um, I wasn't talking to my dad at the time. I was upset with him because he ended up marrying and somebody that I didn't like. Well, anyways, my boyfriend at the time ended up getting deported. And of course, I was all in love with him. Um, when I started dating him, what I really liked about being with him was his family, because I ended up moving in with him before he was going to get deported, and he had a mom, a dad, so like they had their routine. That was something I never really had. Um, so once he got into the process of being deported and whatnot, I ended up going down to Mexico with him. Came back, I worked. At that time I did start using. Um, Sorry, I'm nervous. This is the first time. Well, anyways, so while I was in Mexico, which it was New Year's of 2014, I ended up being attacked. Um, when I was able to call my family and tell them what happened, um, and it took them about a week before they were able to bring me back to the United States. When I came back, I tried doing therapy and stuff, but it was hard for me for my therapist to tell me it wasn't my fault when I knew it was my fault. Before I had left, my dad had told me not to go. He kept pleading with me not to go. He didn't want me to go, but at that time, if he was going through it, I was going to go through it with him. I started using like even heavier, like meth, even heavier. Um, I really lost myself after that. It was really hard. Um, I just didn't care about anything anymore. I was at a pretty low point in my life. I am I questioned everything about everything, It was really hard to go through that. Um, then I found out I was pregnant with my oldest in 2015. I didn't have her till 2016. I was very suicidal before I had found out I was pregnant. It seemed, I guess you could say, as soon as I found out I was pregnant, that's when I wanted to start taking care of myself more, you know, doing better. Because before that, my hygiene, all that, it was horrible. I wasn't doing anything to take care of myself. So once I found out I was pregnant, I got clean. It was really hard. Um, my daughter's dad, he was no help. Even though he knew I was trying to stop, he would sit there and still right in front of me. So I ended up moving in with my sister. About 7 months pregnant, me and my sister got in an argument. So I ended up moving to Wichita with a cousin of mine. I was, still clean, still determined to stay clean for my baby. So after going to Wichita with my cousin about a week and 3 days, I ended up getting my own apartment in Wichita. I had my baby in Wichita. It was really hard because I only had my cousin and, an aunt that was there. So, I was in my own apartment by myself with my first baby. It was an experience. It was crazy. I ended up having my back ended up going out, and then I found out I had scoliosis, and it it was hard. After 6 months, after she was 6 months, I came back to Topeka because I wanted my baby to be around her family because it was just me and my baby at the time. I wanted her to be around family, and all my family's here in Topeka. So I came back after less than a month. I ended up using again. Um, it was like KBC got involved. Um, so I got clean. It was a roller coaster. I got clean again. I went back into school because I had already been in school for computers. Um, after I got done with the KBC thing, I realized I ended up falling off again. I started using meth again. I got pregnant with my second one, my second child, Allie. While I was pregnant, one of my best friends from elementary had gotten out of prison. We've been friends since second grade. He got out of prison. I had been using, he was on my top about using and being pregnant, and, he was a really good friend. Um, he ended up started using as well. Well, I was like 4 months pregnant with my second one. He he ended up getting shot and killed. It was really hard because I was scared since I was pregnant with my second one. I was scared to go to the hospital, like to do my checkups and stuff. Well, I remember that day he came and he was telling me that, I'll take you to your sonogram, we'll do this, we'll do that. He was one of my real big supporters. After he left, he ended up getting shot and killed. I went downhill again. I ended up moving in with my sister again to try and get clean. It was really hard going through that, losing him. Um, that's when KBC got involved again for, using again. I ended up getting clean. I was back into school. And it just seemed like I just kept falling and falling. I ended up moving in with my mom finally after my second one. Well, at the time she was using too. Um, I just kept using after that. I met my kids' dad. And I had a really hard time stopping with my third one, Liliana. By then was when I first started working with PCAP. It, it was hard for me to admit that I had a problem. I knew I wanted to stop, but it was really hard for me to stop at a time. And I was really ashamed because I always told myself also that I wasn't getting used while pregnant. So that whole pregnancy, I felt so bad. And then after I had Liliana, I got pregnant again. And it was hard for me to stop then. So both pregnancies with Liliana and my son Sinsetto, they were both positive when I had them. I was still working with PCAP. It just seemed like it was getting harder and harder for me to stop. It was like I guess you could say I lost control. Like, because before it was like, oh, I could stop whenever, I could, because my older two, I was able to stop. With Liliana and Sinsetto, it was really hard for me to stop. It just seemed like the environment, because I had family, friends, it was just like everyone around me used. I didn't know who to turn to or any of that. When I was pregnant with Liliana, my mom had finally gotten clean. Um, that's when she starts, encouraging me, just talk to her, just talk to her. And I was so scared of Jennifer every time she came to my house. It was crazy. I was always scared. I was always nervous. And Jennifer's just sitting there all smiling and everything. And I'm like, I really don't like deep down inside, I wanted to talk to her. I wanted to tell her I needed help, that I didn't like living like this anymore. And it was just like, I don't know, Jennifer just, I don't know if she could see that in me, but I was just like very closed off. Till I finally decided, I'm just gonna tell her I need help. So I did. I opened up to her, told her I've been using, and Jennifer's looking at me like, girl, I've been knowing this, just waiting for you. And I asked her to help me find somewhere I could take my kids because I didn't have no one to watch my kids by then. I had 4 kids by then. My mom did take my oldest because she was in school, and Jennifer helped me find a place where I could take my younger 3 with me, which is in Wichita, Miracles. Since then, I've been clean. It was hard coming back because I went back to the same environment, but luckily, my family and my friends, they stayed away. And while I was gone, they went to my apartment, they helped clean it up. I mean, they knew how I felt. I was scared to lose my kids. I mean, I should have done that a long time ago and just opened up to her. And I was stubborn. But yeah, going back after rehab, it was hard going back into that same environment. But then Jennifer helped me find another place for us to move. She's been with me every step of the way. And I'm very glad that I did open up to her. I'm glad that I did get referred to PCAP because honestly, I feel like if I didn't have her, I would have lost everything. I haven't, I had another baby when I came back. So now I have 5. With this one, I was clean the whole time, which I'm very happy. I felt bad that the other 2 wasn't, but with Maria, she is happy and healthy. That's it.
Thanks, Alicia. You did great. I know you were nervous, but you did great. All right, and now you've told the world what a scary, scary person I am. Thank you. Sorry. All right, next we have Nathan.
Hello, everyone. Thank you both for sharing and for inviting me to talk to you guys today. My name is Nathan Voss, and I am a person in long-term recovery. So what that means to me is I haven't used any substances since 12/6 of 2020. And I will tell you a little bit about my past and what brought me into this today. From a young age, I was diagnosed with ADHD, so that's when medications were given to me for that. And that's when I started finding out that people abuse these, and I ended up started trading them for opiates, which is what I became addicted to. Um, this was all probably middle school, and around the same time as a musician, I started, getting into bands and playing live music places. So this kind of lifestyle, being in bars and stuff at a young age, definitely contributed to it spiraling deeper. Um, so my main problems were with opiates and alcohol. And both of those would follow me on this journey that I was on throughout this entirely, basically. I got married pretty young also, in which I had my first daughter, who is 11 now, and the substance abuse, it never really ended throughout the marriage, which um two addicts living together, it just really never works out like that. And eventually, my older daughter, I started getting in trouble more, and my older daughter was taken by the state. And at the time, I was in jail already, so I wasn't there to, remain in the life or pick her up that day. So she did get placed into state custody, and that's when our journey with, the foster care system and everything began. None of this ever stopped me from using at the time. It just it kind of got in my head a little more, and just it made me almost give up. I got released from incarceration about 2 weeks before, a permanency hearing. So I ended up being able to show up in person and not lose my rights. And, that should have been a huge win for me, and it still didn't. She ended up, coming back, but at the same time, I wasn't there. I was kind of there physically most of the time, but I just wasn't there as a good role model and, you know, making good decisions around here, showing her how to, that I'm a role model and being good, how to be a good parent and all that. So it kind of ends up with my second daughter coming into my life. She is now 4, which at the time I was in another relationship with alcohol and drugs involved. So I'm a huge advocate for fathers, and I'm a huge advocate for harm reduction and also Oxford House. So these are all things that I'm involved in now, but I stayed in Oxford House the first time for about 16 months. And that's when I told myself that, I don't, my problem's with drugs, so I can leave here and start drinking again, which led to some of the darkest times of my life, honestly. I crawled back after about 3 years, um, which really led me into realizing how real this fentanyl crisis is and everything going on. Because after being an opiate addict for over 10 years, I overdosed for the first time in my life and Narcan back to life. And it was, it blew my mind because I'd been doing this for so long, and it wasn't even a daily habit at that point. It's just like how some of my friends have died. They thought they could do, you know, just take a pill one day and be fine. But then if you do these kind of things while you're alone, it's just not safe anymore. So luckily I had people around me, and I got brought back. And that was my hugest turning point in all of this. I realized I wanted to be here and be a good father to my kids. Um, that's when I've been to Vallejo and Mir, and that time I was at Vallejo, and I never looked back since leaving there. I directly went straight into Oxford House again. Oxford House probably saved my life. Um, the problem was I was I still had my younger daughter, and her mom wasn't always making the best decisions, so I ended up taking her on full time. But at the time we didn't have men and children's Oxford houses, so I ended up opening the first one here in Topeka. And that's where I took my daughter directly with another full-time dad, and it's been such an amazing thing to be a part of. About a year later, I opened up the second men and children's Oxford house. And that house in particular, it's helped reintegrate 3 different kids out of state custody into the home. And it's just been such an amazing journey to be on. So all this fatherhood stuff that I was doing and working with people with substance abuse in the community, it led me into my position that I'm in today. And I'm a parent engagement coordinator with Kansas Children's Service League. So a lot of the people, I decided I was going to place myself near high-risk parents, people that I could understand better and I could use my life experience to help in a better way. So I connected with people, in the probation office. I work with people at the mission. I work with people at MIR. There's just a lot of things that I've been trying to give back to personally, places that I've been to in my life and use my life experience to reach others. And it's led me to amazing opportunities right now. And I'm gonna leave some time for questions and everything, but I'm glad I got to share with you guys today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nathan. All your stories were wonderful. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions that you can either put in the chat box or you can come off mute and ask?
I just want to say I appreciate Andrea, Alicia, and Nathan. All the information you have is so very helpful. Nathan, will you all take people from Gary County that have substance abuse issues?
So what I do in the community right now is I teach parenting classes and support groups. So we are all over the state, so we have other options, but anybody's feel free to reach out to me. I can get you more info.
Okay. I was thinking about the single parent dads like yourself. In Junction City, we have so few limited resources, like you said, for the fathers especially. And I was just wondering if the Oxford House would be able to reach out and help those that I've come across that are having substance abuse issues.
I mean, it really all starts with people hitting that rock bottom where they want to change their lives. So
Sure.
getting involved in an inpatient program to get that
Okay.
good time under your belt, and then look into resources afterwards for sober living recovery homes. But just being educated while you're in inpatient treatment, stuff like that would probably be the go-to first.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan.
No problem. Thank you.
Nathan,
I
see
want to
you.
make a comment on your guys' stories and how telling your story to other people is very helpful. People that are out and think, how can you help me if you've never been through this situation? And you guys are actually helping by talking about the situation, and they're like, oh, well, you did get clean, so it is possible. So you guys are a hope to other people if you just keep telling your story and being positive and telling them, yeah, there was a dark part of me or a dark piece of my life, but now I'm in the light, and these are the struggles that I went through. So hearing you guys talk about your guys' story is very helpful to the people that that may be in your situation like you guys were in the past. And working with Nathan, like other fathers or other people that are in the Oxford houses, they know somebody's there to help that's maybe been through that situation. Because a lot of people are questioning, how can you help me if you don't know what I've been through? If you don't know how I feel. So props to you guys for doing that and stay involved and keep sharing your story, because you guys will help somebody, or help more people than what you think.
There is a question in the chat box I see, and I don't know which one of you wants to answer, but it says, what could the professionals that you all worked with, or what could they have done to better help you? What can we say or do to better support you and keep you in recovery? Is that something either of you, any of the three of you would like to answer?
Well, can you guys hear me? Am I
Yeah.
on mute?
Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Well, I don't really have, I was just gonna say, I don't think there's anything, it's kind of like what Nathan was saying, like until you hit rock bottom and you really want to change, there's nothing anybody can do to help you until you actually want it. Like the only reason that I'm still clean isn't because of other people. It's because I wanted it so bad. Like other people have helped me, yes, and other people have encouraged me and definitely been a stepping stone on the way. That's not what I'm saying, but you know, ultimately it's up to the person. And if they're not scared, that if they're not scared that something really bad is going to happen to them or they're going to die, most of the time it doesn't work. They're going to relapse again. I had to lose everything. I had to lose everything for me to want something better, you know? So yeah. And I will say that Jennifer Gasman has been very helpful with me staying clean this time by offering to try, New Dawn outpatient for me again. Sometimes it takes a few times for people to go to rehab to get it. I never thought that, but it was true for me, but I just want to say, personally for me, Jennifer, I don't think there's anything different she could have done to help me being my worker. I think that she's done the perfect job of being there to help me and help me with my kids and help me to get me to where I am today. By just being supportive. So
I think that's a good answer. Greg, did you have a question? Greg had his hand up.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
There was another question in the chat box for Nathan. It says, I observe a bias with helping single fathers reunite with kids in care if they're not in a relationship with the child's mother. What do you wish system professionals knew or would do to help fathers in that situation?
This was a tough one. I teach fatherhood specific classes, so I get to meet a lot of cool fathers in this community. And I've noticed that things are changing a bit with that bias. I have gentlemen come into my classes, and get their certificates and take them to court, and the judges are starting to be like, why are you keeping this kid from the dad? He's not doing anything wrong. And it's just system professionals knew it. I mean, it comes down to, parents need both children. It's very important that both parents in their lives. So it's very important that we allow that if they're both doing right. It's something I've dealt with, a child being held for me, and then I have a full-time 4-year-old right now, and it's something that I don't want to put on her mom either. If she's doing all right, I'm going to let her see her kid, as long as it's healthy. It's just something that it's come a long way, and it still has work to do.
We had another question. So throughout the journey with the various systems you're all involved with, what did you find that was not helpful or maybe impaired your progress to get healthy? I mean, was there anything that you felt like people said or did that was not helpful? Or that
It's a
kinda-
lot of people, places, and things. You got to change everything about your life. For me, changing it was working the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and now I sponsor other people to do the same.
I think for me, I just want to highlight on what Nathan just said there. You know, a lot of the reason why I think people can't get it right is addicts can't get it right is because you have to change everything. You have to change your mindset. You have to change your environment, the people you talk to. I haven't even had a Facebook. I haven't had a Facebook since October of 2018. I will not get a Facebook because that's how people got a hold of me last time when I relapsed. You know, has it been hard not to get a Facebook all those years? Because everybody uses it to see school pictures and for your kids' sports. And I won't get one. I'll do something different. I'll just be like, I don't have one. Here's some cash. Or, I just won't see the pictures because my sobriety comes first. I think with you just really have to stand your ground and stand for something, and change everything. And I'm a firm believer that that's the only way it works.
Any other questions? I have to tell you, Nathan, Alicia, and Andrea, I think you all provide hope. And I think that is amazing. I appreciate so much you guys sharing your amazing journeys. It's not always easy to share those. And I think I would speak for everybody on this call of saying congratulations. We are all very proud of you and your sobriety. But I think what I take away from this is hearing your stories is, I'll go back to where we come from with our mission, and one of the taglines in there is hope. And I think you guys do provide us with that hope and that inspiration, and knowing that we can all do things differently. So if there's no more questions, I'll throw it back to you, Jennifer. And I just want to thank all of you for sharing your stories, for being a part of this panel. And thank you for sharing your journeys and blessing us all with the hope that I think we can all use going forward. And I think everybody on here wishes all three of you the best of luck, and anybody else on here that is in recovery, or even struggling with addiction at this time. There is hope out there, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks,
Thank
Eric.
you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of you for speaking, for letting me twist your arm or whatever I did to get you all to speak. Thank you very much for that. But your stories do mean so much. They mean so much to me. They mean so much to everyone who hears them. So just to show that, yes, there is help out there. There's hope for people going through it. So thank you all for attending. Our last webinar will be next week, next Wednesday at noon. We're going to have Chuck Clubguard speaking about supporting grand families and family members who might be raising their children, their grandchildren, or other family members throughout this overdose crisis, this crisis with substance use. So he's going to be talking about helping to support those families and resources for them. So we'll stay on for a few minutes. If anybody has a question they would like to ask any of us after that, we'll stay on for just a little bit until everyone's gone. But thank you all so much for attending, and hope to see you next week.